Hi, I'm Claire, and this is the story of how my mother's death changed everything I thought I knew about my family. The lawyer's office smelled of old paper and lemon polish. I sat in one of those stiff leather chairs that squeaked every time I shifted my weight, trying to find a position that didn't make my back ache. Across from me, my sister Victoria sat ramrod straight, her designer handbag perched on her lap like a small, expensive dog. She hadn't looked at me once since we'd arrived. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Our mother had been gone for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of funeral arrangements, condolence casseroles, and the strange, hollow silence that fills a house when someone who was always there suddenly isn't. Victoria had handled most of it, sweeping in with her usual efficiency, making decisions without consulting me. I'd let her. It was easier that way, and besides, I'd been the one sitting with Mom during those final months, holding her hand through the bad days, reading to her when she couldn't sleep. Mr. Henderson, Mom's lawyer for the past 30 years, cleared his throat and began reading. His voice was steady and professional, the kind of voice that had delivered both good news and bad news so many times that it had become neutral to both. I tried to focus on his words, but they seemed to blur together. Real estate, investments, personal effects. The language of wills is cold and clinical, reducing a lifetime of love and memories to assets and distributions. Then I heard my name. To my daughter Claire, I leave my collection of journals, my grandmother's wedding ring, and the sum of $5,000. $5,000. I blinked. Mom's estate was worth over $2 million. To my daughter Victoria, I leave the remainder of my estate, including the family home, all investment accounts, and the contents thereof. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt like I'd been slapped. Not because of the money exactly, though that stung, but because of what it meant, what it said. Victoria finally looked at me, and I saw something flicker across her face. Triumph? Vindication? Then it was gone, replaced by a carefully constructed expression of concern. "Claire, I'm sure there's been a mistake," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. But there was no mistake. Mr. Henderson showed us the document, dated and signed, Mom's signature shaky but unmistakable. It had been updated just 6 months ago, when she was still lucid, still herself. This wasn't the confusion of illness. This was intentional. I stumbled out of that office in a daze. Victoria followed me into the parking lot, her heels clicking on the asphalt like a countdown. I wanted to get in my car and drive away, to process this alone, but she grabbed my arm. "Claire, wait. We should talk about this." I turned to face her, and that's when I saw it. The mask slipped just for a moment, and underneath was something cold and satisfied. "There's nothing to talk about," I managed to say. "You're right," she said, and her voice changed, became sharp and bright. "There isn't. Mom made her choice. She loved me more. That's why you got nothing." The words hit me like physical blows. Nothing. After everything. After the years of caring for Mom, after moving back home to help her, after sacrificing my own life and career, nothing. "I got Mom's journals," I said quietly, "and her ring." Victoria laughed, actually laughed. "Sentimental garbage. Enjoy your trinkets, Claire. I'll enjoy the house and the money, and finally being recognized as the daughter who mattered." She walked away then, leaving me standing alone in that parking lot, my world tilting on its axis. I got in my car and sat there for a long time, too stunned to cry, too hurt to be angry yet. That would come later. I looked down at the envelope Mr. Henderson had given me. Inside were the keys to Mom's safety deposit box where the journals were kept, and a small note in her handwriting. "Read them all, my Claire. Then you'll understand." Understand what? Why she'd cut me out? Why Victoria had won? I started the car and drove home to my tiny apartment, the one I'd kept even while essentially living at Mom's house for the past 2 years. And I made a decision. I would read those journals. Every single one. If Mom wanted me to understand, then I would understand. Whatever it took. I didn't open the journals right away. For 3 days, they sat in their box on my kitchen table while I went through the motions of living. Work at the library, where I'd picked up shifts again after Mom passed, microwave dinners, staring at the television without really watching anything. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Victoria's lawyer, papers to sign, details to finalize. I ignored them all. On the 4th day, I woke up angry. The kind of anger that burns clean and hot, that cuts through grief like a knife. I made coffee, sat down at that table, and opened the first journal. It was older than I expected. The pages yellowed and brittle. The date on the first entry was from 1985, 2 years before I was born. Mom's handwriting was different then, rounder and more carefree. She had been 28, newly married to Dad, working as a teacher. She had written, "John and I decided today that we're ready. Ready to start our family. I've never been so excited and terrified at the same time. What if I'm not a good mother? What if I can't do it?" I smiled despite myself. Mom had been an incredible mother. At least I'd always thought so. I kept reading, flipping through entries about her pregnancy with Victoria, the joy and fear and anticipation, the birth, those first sleepless nights, and then something shifted. The entries became shorter, more terse. Victoria cried for 5 hours today. Nothing I do is right. I'm exhausted. The doctor says she's healthy, but she never stops crying. I feel like I'm failing. John doesn't understand. He works all day and comes home to a clean house and dinner ready. He doesn't see how hard this is. I'd never known Mom struggled with Victoria. Growing up, she had always seemed so natural with us, so easy and loving. But these pages told a different story. They told of a young mother overwhelmed, of postpartum depression before people really talked about it, of a baby that was colicky and difficult. Then, 3 years later, another entry. "I'm pregnant again. I should be happy, but I'm terrified. What if it's like last time? What if I can't handle two?" But it wasn't like last time. The entries about my pregnancy with me were lighter, more hopeful. And after I was born, Claire is such an easy baby. She sleeps, she eats, she smiles. I feel like I can finally breathe. I feel like I'm maybe not such a terrible mother after all. I set down the journal and stared at the wall. So that was it. I'd been the easy child, Victoria the difficult one. But surely that didn't explain everything. Surely that didn't explain cutting me out of the will. I picked up the second journal. This one covered my early childhood, Victoria's struggles in school, the way she'd acted out for attention. Mom wrote about feeling guilty, about trying to give Victoria more because she seemed to need it more. "Claire is so independent," one entry read. "Sometimes I worry I neglect her because she doesn't demand the way Victoria does. But when I try to spend more time with her, Victoria falls apart. I don't know how to love them equally when they need such different things." My hands were shaking. I'd never known that Mom had struggled with this, that she'd felt torn between us. I'd always assumed Victoria was the favorite because she was firstborn, more accomplished, more like Dad. The third journal was harder to read. It covered my teenage years and Victoria's wild phase. The drinking, the sneaking out, the boyfriend who got her pregnant at 17, the abortion Mom paid for that Dad never knew about. The way Victoria blamed Mom for everything, screamed that she was controlling and suffocating. "She hates me," Mom wrote. "My own daughter hates me. And maybe she's right to. Maybe I am controlling. But I'm scared. I'm so scared of losing her." And then an entry about me. Claire got accepted to State University with a full scholarship. She told me quietly over dinner like it was no big deal. Victoria stormed out. She didn't get in anywhere. I don't know what to do. I'm so proud of Claire, but I can't show it. Not when Victoria is falling apart. I closed the journal and pressed my palms against my eyes. The picture was becoming clearer, and I didn't like it. Mom had spent her whole life trying to keep Victoria from falling apart, and in doing so, she had made Victoria believe she was the important one, the one that mattered most. The fourth journal was different. Instead of regular entries, it was filled with letters. Letters Mom had written but never sent. Letters to Dad, who died 10 years ago, letters to her own mother, and letters to Victoria and me. I found the first letter to me dated from my college graduation. My dearest Claire, you looked so beautiful today in your cap and gown, so proud and confident. You've always been that way, even as a little girl, self-sufficient, strong. I wish I'd told you more often how much I admire you. But Victoria was there today, and she was struggling. Another breakup, another job lost. And I spent the whole reception managing her crisis instead of celebrating your achievement. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm always sorry. Tears blurred my vision. I'd remembered that day. Victoria had gotten drunk and caused a scene, and Mom had taken her home early. I told everyone it was fine, that I understood. And I had understood, in a way. But it had hurt. The letters continued, chronicling years of similar moments. My first job, my promotion, the trip to Europe I had saved for, every milestone dampened by Victoria's dramas, by Mom.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Victoria, you called me today, screaming about how I've ruined your life. You're 35 years old, and you still blame me for everything. When will you take responsibility? When will you grow up? I'm tired, so tired of being your villain. Another. You asked me for money again today. $50,000 to invest in another business scheme. I said yes. I always say yes, because I'm afraid of what you'll do if I say no. But I'm enabling you. I see that now. I'm your mother, but I'm also your crutch, and I don't know how to stop. I spent the entire day reading those letters. They painted a picture I'd never seen of a mother trapped between two daughters, trying desperately to keep everyone afloat, giving Victoria money, attention, reassurance, assuming I didn't need those things because I seemed so capable. But the last letter to me was different. It was dated just 8 months ago, when Mom's cancer had come back. Claire, I'm dying. The doctors say I have maybe a year, probably less. And I need to make things right. I need you to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, why my will reads the way it does. Victoria needs this inheritance. She needs it because she's never learned to stand on her own. She's never had to, because I've always caught her when she fell. This is my last gift to her. Not because I love her more, but because I'm finally letting her go. I'm forcing her to become the person she needs to be. But you, my darling Claire, you don't need money. You never have. You need to know that you were loved, that you were seen, that every sacrifice you made, every time you stepped back to let Victoria have the spotlight, I noticed, I appreciated, I loved you for it. My breath caught in my throat. The journals are my real gift to you. They're the truth. The whole truth about our family, about me, about your sister. Read them all. Learn from my mistakes. And know that I'm sorry. Sorry for not telling you more often how proud I was. Sorry for taking your strength for granted. You deserved better. But you also deserve to choose your own path, unburdened by guilt or obligation. The money I'm leaving Victoria? It's a test. It's her last chance to prove she can make something of herself. But the journals I'm leaving you? They're a gift of understanding, of truth. I hope they're enough. I set the letter down with trembling hands. The coffee had gone cold hours ago. Outside, the sun was setting, painting my small apartment in shades of orange and gold. I couldn't stop reading. The 5th journal covered the period when Dad got sick. Victoria had been 32, between jobs again, living in an expensive apartment she couldn't afford. Mom had been covering her rent while also dealing with Dad's medical bills. Victoria didn't visit John in the hospital once. She says hospitals make her anxious. Everything makes her anxious. Everything is always about her feelings, her needs, her trauma. And I enable it. I know I do. I pay her bills and make excuses for her, while Claire sits with John every night after work, reading to him, holding his hand. Claire took unpaid leave to be there at the end. Victoria sent flowers. The entry was dated 3 days before Dad died. After his death, the entries became darker. Mom had been angry, grieving, and finally seeing clearly. "I'm done," she'd written. "I'm done making excuses for Victoria." At the funeral, she complained about the flowers, the service, the reception. She said I'd made it all about me, that I was performing grief. Meanwhile, Claire wrote the eulogy and held me while I cried. But when Victoria throws a tantrum, I still find myself apologizing to her. It's a sickness. This dynamic between us is a sickness. But the resolution didn't last. Within weeks, Mom was back to her old patterns. Victoria needed help with a down payment on a condo. Victoria's boyfriend had left her and she needed therapy money. Victoria, Victoria, Victoria. There was an entry from 4 years ago that made me gasp. Victoria asked me today if she's in the will. Just asked outright, over lunch, like it was a casual question. When I said, of course, that both she and Claire would inherit equally, she got upset. Said it wasn't fair, that she needed more because life had been harder for her. She actually argued that she deserved a larger share. I didn't know what to say. How did I raise someone so entitled? I remembered that period. Mom had seemed distant, distracted. I assumed she was still grieving Dad. Now I understood. She'd been wrestling with the truth about Victoria. The 6th journal was painful to read. It covered the 2 years before Mom's diagnosis. Victoria had gone through a string of failed relationships and jobs. There were entries about money Mom had loaned that was never repaid, an entry about Victoria showing up drunk at Mom's house at 2 in the morning, screaming about how Mom never loved her enough. "She says I ruined her life," Mom wrote, "that I was critical and controlling, that I made her feel like she was never good enough. And maybe there's truth in that. Maybe I did damage her by trying so hard to fix her. But at what point does she have to take responsibility? She's 40 years old. When does it become her life, her choices, her responsibility?" Then came the diagnosis. Stage 3 ovarian cancer. The prognosis wasn't good. I told the girls today. Mom wrote. Claire went pale and quiet, then asked what the doctor said, what the treatment plan was, what I needed. Victoria cried and made it about her fear of losing me, then asked if she had updated her will recently. Actually asked me that while I was telling her I had cancer? I pressed my hand to my mouth. I remembered that day. Victoria had been so emotional, so dramatic in her grief. I thought she was just expressing her feelings openly, the way she always did. But Mom had seen through it. The treatment entries were hard to read. Victoria visited once during the first round of chemo, stayed for 20 minutes, and left because the hospital smell bothered her. She called often, but always to talk about her own problems. Meanwhile, I'd moved back home, taken family leave from work, become Mom's primary caregiver. Claire is here, Mom wrote, every day, every night. She manages my medications, drives me to appointments, holds my hair when I'm sick. She does this without complaint, without asking for recognition. And Victoria calls to tell me about her problems with her latest boyfriend. I want to scream at her. I want to tell her to grow up. But I don't. I never do. The 7th journal began with a single entry that changed everything. I've made my decision, Mom had written in shaky handwriting. I'm changing my will. I've thought about this for months, and I know it's the right thing to do. Not the easy thing, the right thing. The entry was dated just 8 months ago, when Mom's cancer had come back. I'm leaving almost everything to Victoria, not because I love her more, God, not because of that, but because she needs to hit bottom. She needs to face consequences. She's 43 years old, and she's never had to stand on her own because I've always caught her. I've made her weak by trying to make her strong. This is my last chance to fix that mistake. I read on, barely breathing. Victoria thinks money will solve all her problems. She's been circling, waiting for me to die so she can inherit. She doesn't say it directly, but I hear it in every question about the will, every comment about the house. She thinks money will finally make her happy, will finally prove she was the loved one, the important one. But money won't fix what's broken in Victoria. Only she can do that. So I'm giving her enough rope to either save herself or hang herself. $2 million, the house, everything she thinks she wants. And then we'll see. Will she invest it wisely, build a life, or will she blow through it in 5 years on bad investments and bad relationships? I'm betting on the latter, but I'm hoping I'm wrong. My hands were shaking so hard, I almost dropped the journal. As for Claire, Mom continued, she doesn't need money from me. She's built her own life, made her own way. She has a career, savings, stability. Money would be nice, of course. It's always nice. But it wouldn't change her life the way it might change Victoria's. And that's the tragedy, isn't it? That I spent Victoria's whole life giving her everything, and it made her helpless. While I took Claire's strength for granted, and it made her strong. But I'm not leaving Claire with nothing. I'm leaving her the truth.
And entries about me, quieter entries, full of pride and regret. My graduate degree, my promotion to head librarian, my volunteer work, the small, steady life I'd built. Mom saw it all and appreciated it, but she'd rarely said so because Victoria was always in crisis. I told Claire today that I was proud of her, one entry read. She looked shocked, actually shocked. How long has it been since I said that? Too long. Always too long. I closed the last journal and sat in the silence of my apartment. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic. Inside, everything had changed. I understood now, but understanding didn't make it hurt less. Mom had been right about one thing. I was free. Free from guilt, from obligation, from wondering if I'd done enough. But I was also angry. Angry at Mom for manipulating us, even from the grave. Angry at Victoria for being so blind to her own privilege. And angry at myself for being the easy one, the strong one, the one who never needed anything. My phone buzzed. Victoria. I've been ignoring her calls for 2 weeks. I answered. Finally, she said, I've been trying to reach you. We need to settle Mom's estate. I need you to sign papers. I've been reading, I said. Reading what? The journals Mom left me. Silence. Then, those old things, what a waste of space. Anyway, about the house. Victoria, did you ever wonder why Mom left things the way she did? Because she loved me more. Her voice was sharp, defensive. Because I was the one she actually cared about. You were always off doing your own thing, and I was the one who... You visited her once during chemo. Once. That's not fair. Hospitals make me anxious. You know that. Everything makes you anxious, Victoria. Everything except spending Mom's money. How dare you? You're just jealous. You've always been jealous that Mom and I were close. I laughed. Actually laughed. Victoria, Mom wrote about you in these journals. Every manipulation, every crisis, every time she bailed you out. Did you know she paid back $30,000 you stole from your employer? Or that she paid for your abortion when you were 17? Or that she covered your rent for 6 years straight? She told you about that? Those were private things. She had no right. She had every right. They're her journals. And you know what else she wrote? That she was enabling you.
That she made you weak by never letting you face consequences. That this inheritance was one last chance for you to either grow up or destroy yourself. That's a lie. You're making that up because you're bitter. I'm not bitter, Victoria. I'm free. That's what Mom actually left me. Freedom from this. From you. From the obligation to clean up your messes. You've always thought you were better than me, Victoria hissed. So perfect, so responsible, but Mom saw through that. She knew you were cold, unloving. That's why you got nothing. I got the truth, I said quietly. And that's worth more than your inheritance.
I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt lighter somehow. Clearer. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. She called 5 more times. On the 6th call, I answered. What do you want, Victoria? I need you to sign the papers. The estate can't be settled until you do. Fine. Send them over. I'll sign. Just like that? Just like that. I don't want your inheritance, Victoria. I never did. Because you're too proud, too good for Mum's money? Because it's not about the money. It never was. 3 months after signing the papers, I heard through an old family friend that Victoria had purchased a luxury condo in the expensive part of town. 2 months after that, she'd bought a new Mercedes. She posted photos on social media, living her best life, traveling to Europe, dining at expensive restaurants. I didn't call her, didn't reach out. I was doing what Mom had asked, letting Victoria make her own choices, face her own consequences. But it was harder than I expected. Decades of being the responsible one, the one who stepped in, don't just disappear because you understand why you did it. I threw myself into work. The library was planning an expansion, and I volunteered to lead the project. I started dating again, something I'd put on hold during Mom's illness. I took a painting class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Slowly, carefully, I built a life that was mine. But I couldn't stop thinking about the journals, about Mom's words, about what she was really trying to teach us. 6 months after the will was read, Victoria called me. It was 3 a.m. Claire? Her voice was slurred. Claire, I need to talk to you. Are you drunk? No, maybe. I don't know. Did Mom really write all that stuff about me? In the journals? I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. Yes. That I stole money? That I was entitled? Yes. Silence. Then, was she right?
My heart sank. What kind of loan documents? I'm not at liberty to discuss details, but she's significantly behind on payments. We've been trying to reach her, but she's not responding. Would you happen to know how to contact her? I can try, I said. I hung up and immediately called Victoria. It went to voicemail. I tried again. And again. Finally, on the 4th try, she answered. What? The bank called me. Victoria? What's going on? Nothing. It's fine. I'm handling it. Are you? Because they're calling me, which means you're not handling it. I just need a little more time. I'm working on a new investment, and once that comes through... Victoria, stop. Please stop. Stop what? Stop chasing the next big thing. Stop thinking money is going to solve everything. Stop running. You don't understand. You've never understood. You've always had it so easy. Something in me snapped. Easy? You think my life has been easy? I spent 2 years caring for Mom while you visited once. I've worked for everything I have while you waited for handouts. I've been the responsible one, the boring one, the one who always does the right thing. And you know what? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being the stable one. But I'm even more tired of watching you destroy yourself. Then don't watch. No one asked you to. Mom did.
in her journals. She asked me to let you fail, to not save you. She said it was the only way you'd learn. And she was right. She was right about everything. Silence. Then quietly, "Can I read them?" "What?" "The journals. Can I read them?" I was so surprised I almost dropped the phone. "You want to read them?" I need to know what she really thought, what she really wrote. I thought about it for a long moment. This wasn't in Mom's instructions. She had left the journals to me, not to Victoria. But maybe this was the next step. Maybe this was what healing looked like. "Yes," I said, "you can read them. But all of them, Victoria. Not just the parts you want to see." "Okay. And I won't explain them or soften them. You'll read Mom's words in her voice without my filter." "Okay. Come to my place this weekend, Saturday afternoon." She agreed and hung up. That Saturday, Victoria showed up at my apartment. She looked terrible. Thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes. Her clothes were nice, but not designer, and they hung on her frame like she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. I'd arranged the journals on my kitchen table in chronological order. 10 journals spanning 40 years of our mother's life. "Coffee?" I offered. "Sure." We sat in awkward silence while the coffee brewed. This was the first time Victoria had been to my apartment in years. She looked around at my small, tidy space. "It's nice," she said. "Cozy. It's enough." The coffee finished brewing. I poured 2 cups, and we sat at the table with those journals between us. "Where do I start?" she asked. "The beginning. That's where Mom started." Victoria opened the first journal and began to read. I watched her face change as she went through the entries about her difficult infancy, Mom's struggles, her own challenging childhood. At first, she looked defensive, then hurt, then something softer. Sad, maybe, or thoughtful. Victoria read for 6 hours straight. I left her alone mostly, refilling her coffee, ordering takeout when afternoon turned into evening. She cried several times. Once, she looked up at me with such raw pain that I almost went to comfort her. But I didn't. This was something she needed to do alone. When she finally closed the last journal, it was dark outside. My apartment was lit only by the lamp over the table. Victoria's face was blotchy from crying, her eye makeup smeared. "She hated me," Victoria whispered. "No, she loved you. That's what makes it all so tragic. She wrote all these terrible things about me. She wrote the truth. And yes, some of it was terrible. But she also wrote about loving you, worrying about you, trying to help you. By enabling me, by making me weak." Victoria's voice was bitter. "That's what she wrote, that she made me weak." "Yes. And the inheritance? That was what, a test? One last manipulation?" "It was a chance. A chance for you to prove you could stand on your own, to become the person she always hoped you'd be." "I failed." Victoria's voice broke. "I've blown through almost half of it. The restaurant, the loans, the stupid investments. She knew I would. She predicted it. She hoped she was wrong." "But she wasn't." Victoria looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "And you? What was your test?" "To let you fail. To not save you. To live my own life instead of managing yours." "Have you? Failed your test, I mean?" I thought about it. The calls I'd ignored, the times I'd bitten my tongue, the restraint it taken not to step in and fix things. I don't know yet. We're still in the middle of it. God, even from the grave, she's still teaching us lessons. That's what mothers do. We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Normal city sounds, life going on. "I need help," Victoria said finally. "Real help. Not money, not another bailout. I need to figure out how to be a person who doesn't need constant saving." "Okay, then let's figure it out. Together. But not by you fixing it for me." "No, not that. I don't know how to do this," Victoria admitted. "I don't know how to be the person who figures things out instead of the person things happen to." "Neither do I, honestly.
I've spent so long being the responsible one that I don't know who I am without that role. Victoria looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. We're kind of messed up, aren't we? Just in opposite ways. Yeah, we really are. She left around midnight, taking the first journal with her. Can I borrow this one? She asked. I want to read it again, slower this time. After she left, I sat at my table with the remaining 9 journals and thought about Mom. About her elaborate plan, her final manipulation, her desperate hope that we'd both learn something. Had it worked? Was it working? I didn't know yet. What I did know was that for the first time in years, Victoria had asked for help without demanding I fix everything, and I had offered support without trying to take over. Maybe that was progress. Maybe that was the beginning of something new. Or maybe we'd both fail spectacularly, and Mom's final lesson would be that some patterns are too deep to break. Only time would tell. The coffee shop where Victoria and I now met every Tuesday was nothing fancy. Just a small neighborhood place with decent coffee and worn tables. We'd been meeting here for 6 months, since the night she read the journals. I arrived first as usual and ordered my regular coffee. When Victoria walked in 10 minutes later, I noticed the changes immediately. She'd cut her hair shorter, more practical. Her clothes were nice, but not designer. And she was on time, which was new. Sorry, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Traffic was insane.
You're actually early, I pointed out. She smiled, a small, genuine smile. Don't sound so shocked. We'd started these meetings as a way for Victoria to stay accountable. She'd sold Mom's house, finally, and used the money to pay off her debts. It had been hard for her to let go of that house, the last symbol of Mom's love, but she'd done it. She was living in a modest apartment now, working as a manager at a retail store. Not glamorous, but steady. How was your week? I asked. Good, actually. They're considering me for assistant regional manager. It's more responsibility, but also more money. That's great, Victoria. Yeah, she played with her coffee cup. It's weird, you know? Actually earning things, actually working for them. It feels different. Different good or different bad? Different scary. Like, what if I mess it up? What if I'm not actually capable? You are capable. You're proving that every day. She looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Gratitude, maybe. Or recognition. You know what Mom wrote in the journals that stuck with me most? What? She wrote that she'd made me weak by trying to make me strong, that she loved me so much she'd crippled me. And I was so angry when I read that, so angry, but she was right. I never had to develop any strength because she was always there to be strong for me. And now? Now I'm learning, slowly. I still want to call you when things go wrong and ask you to fix it, but I don't. Well, mostly I don't. I smiled. You called me 3 times last week about that situation with your coworker. But I didn't ask you to fix it. I just asked for advice. That's different, right? That's different, I agreed. We sipped our coffee in comfortable silence. These meetings had become important to both of us, a way to rebuild our relationship on new terms. Not the old dynamic of crisis maker and crisis manager, but something more equal, more honest. I've been thinking, Victoria said, about the journals, about whether I want to hate Mom for what she did. And? I can't, because it worked. I'm not who I was 2 years ago. I'm not the person who threw tantrums and expected everyone to accommodate me. I'm not the person who measured my worth by how much attention I could demand. Who are you now? Victoria considered the question. I don't know yet, but I'm figuring it out, and that's more than I could have said before. As for me, I'd made changes too. I'd stepped down from leading the library expansion project, letting a younger colleague take it on. I'd set boundaries at work, stopped volunteering for everything, stopped being the person who always said yes. It felt strange and selfish at first, but also liberating.
I'd continued painting and had even sold a few pieces at a local art fair. Small things, nothing that would change my life, but they were mine. My hobby, my passion, my choice. "How's the painting going?" Victoria asked, as if reading my thoughts. "Good, I'm working on a new series." "Can I see them sometime?" The question surprised me. The old Victoria never showed interest in my life, my hobbies, my achievements. "Sure, you can come by the studio next week if you want." "I'd like that." We finished our coffee and walked out into the spring sunshine. The city was coming alive after a long winter. Trees budding, people smiling. "Same time next week, Victoria?" "Same time." She hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged me. It was awkward and brief, but it was real. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me, even when Mom asked you to." "I didn't give up. I just stopped trying to save you." "Same thing, maybe. Maybe not." She left, walking toward the bus stop instead of getting into an expensive car. I watched her go, this new version of my sister, this person she was becoming. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos. I'd taken pictures of some of Mom's journal entries, the ones that felt most important. I scrolled to one I'd bookmarked. "I don't know if my plan will work. I don't know if Victoria will learn to stand on her own or if she'll crash and burn. I don't know if Claire will finally learn to live for herself or if she'll spend her life feeling guilty for not saving her sister. All I know is that I've done everything wrong for so long that I have to try something different. Even if it hurts, even if they both hate me for it. I hope someday they'll understand. I hope someday they'll forgive me. But more than that, I hope someday they'll thank me, not for the money or the lack of it, but for finally forcing them to become who they were always meant to be." I closed the photo and slipped my phone back into my pocket. Around me, the city hummed with life. People rushing to appointments, to meetings, to lives full of purpose and problems and small joys. Did I forgive Mom? I thought I did. Did I understand her? More and more each day. Would I thank her? I looked up at the spring sky, thinking about manipulation and love, about tough choices and tougher consequences, about two sisters who'd spent their lives in opposite prisons, one made of gold, one made of responsibility, and a mother who tried to free them both with her final act. "Yeah, Mom, I think maybe I would." I turned and walked toward my car, toward my small apartment, toward my Tuesday night painting class, toward my ordinary, messy, beautiful life, the life I was finally learning to live. Behind me, somewhere across the city, Victoria was doing the same. Learning to live, learning to stand, learning to be enough. It wasn't the inheritance either of us expected, but maybe, just maybe, it was the one we both needed. And maybe that was Mom's greatest gift after all. Not the money she left or didn't leave, but the space she created for us to finally become ourselves.
The traffic light changed. I crossed the street and didn't look back. 5 years later, I received a letter in the mail. The return address was Victoria's, but the handwriting was unfamiliar. I opened it curiously. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a short note in Victoria's neat handwriting. "Claire, I sold my first business. Actually, sold it, not lost it. It's a small consulting firm helping other small businesses avoid the mistakes I made. This is your half of the profit, not because you need it, but because you deserve it. Thank you for letting me fail. Thank you for letting me learn. Thank you for being the sister I needed, not the sister I wanted. Also, I'm engaged. His name is David. He's an accountant. Very boring. Very stable. You'll love him. Same coffee shop next Tuesday? My treat. Love, Victoria." I stared at the check, then at the note, then laughed until tears ran down my face. Mom would have loved this. All of it. I picked up my phone and texted back, "Congratulations. See you Tuesday. And you're right. I already love him." Outside my window, the world kept turning, but inside, something had finally, completely
healed. The venue Victoria chose for her wedding was nothing like I expected. No grand ballroom or expensive country club. Instead, she'd rented a small garden pavilion in the park where we'd played as children, the one with the duck pond and the old oak tree Mom used to take us to for picnics. I arrived early to help with setup, something the old Victoria would never have allowed. She would have hired people, made it perfect, made it expensive. But this Victoria was different. She had asked me to help, and I'd said yes. "The flowers go on those tables," Victoria directed, pointing to the round tables arranged under the pavilion. She was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. The wedding wasn't until tomorrow, but today was for preparing. David, her fiancé, was exactly as she'd described. Tall, a little awkward, with kind eyes and a steady presence. He was currently struggling with a string of lights, muttering about electrical safety standards. I liked him immediately. "Need help?" I offered. "Please," he said gratefully. "I'm an accountant, not an electrician." We worked together in comfortable silence, stringing lights across the pavilion. Around us, Victoria directed other helpers, David's sister, a few friends, the wedding coordinator she'd hired for just the day of. "She's different than I expected," Michelle said to me quietly. "Victoria, I mean. From what David told me about the early days, I thought she'd be more high maintenance." I smiled. She was. Life has a way of changing people. For the better, it seems. Yeah, for the better. That evening, after the setup was done, Victoria, David, and I sat by the duck pond with takeout Chinese food. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. It was peaceful here, nostalgic. Mom would have loved this spot. For the wedding, I mean. It was the first time she'd mentioned Mom in months. We'd both been moving forward, sometimes forgetting to look back. "She would have," I agreed. "She loved this park." "I remember her bringing us here," Victoria continued. "I was always the one chasing the ducks, making them scatter. You were the one sitting quietly, watching everything. Some things never change." "Some things do, though." Victoria looked at me. Really looked at me. "I've been thinking about what to say tomorrow, in my vows, and I keep coming back to Mom, to everything she taught us, even the hard stuff." David squeezed her hand. He knew the story, all of it. Victoria had told him everything about the inheritance, the journals, the difficult journey to becoming who she was now. "What are you going to say?" I asked. "That love isn't always comfortable. That sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who let you struggle. That real love means believing someone can be better even when they don't believe it themselves." She paused. "David showed me that, but Mom taught me to recognize it." I felt tears prick my eyes. "She'd be proud of you, Victoria. Really proud." "I hope so. I think about that a lot. Whether she'd be proud, whether she'd think I passed her test. You did. You absolutely did." We sat in silence, watching the ducks glide across the pond. The same ducks, or their descendants, that we'd watched as children. Life cycling forward, always changing, always the same. "I have something for you," Victoria said, pulling a small box from her pocket. "I was going to give it to you tomorrow, but this feels like the right moment." I opened the box. Inside was Mom's wedding ring, the one she had left to me in the will. "Victoria, this is yours! Mom left it to me, but—" "And I'm giving it to you, really giving it to you. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because you were there when I wasn't. Because you earned it in ways I never did." "I can't accept this." "You can. You will." Victoria's voice was firm but kind. "Besides, I have Grandma's engagement ring that Mom wore. David and I are having it reset. It feels right having something of Mom's for tomorrow. But that wedding band? That's yours, Claire. It always should have been." I looked down at the simple gold band, worn smooth by years of wear. Mom had worn this every day of her married life, even after Dad died. It meant everything. Thank you, I whispered. David tactfully excused himself, saying something about checking on the lights one more time. Victoria and I sat alone by the pond. Do you ever wonder, Victoria asked, what would have happened if Mom had split everything equally? If she'd done the traditional thing? Sometimes. I think I'd still be a mess, still waiting for someone to save me, still measuring my worth by what other people gave me instead of what I built myself. And I'd still be trying to save you. Probably, Victoria smiled. She knew us so well, better than we knew ourselves. She was our mother. That was her job. I used to think the inheritance was cruel. Now I think it was the kindest thing she could have done. We sat until the sun finished setting and the park lights flickered on. Tomorrow, Victoria would marry a good man in a simple ceremony. She'd wear a dress she'd bought on sale, carry flowers from the grocery store, and say vows she'd written herself. And she'd be happier than she had ever been in her expensive condo with her luxury car and her trust fund lifestyle. Mom knew. Somehow, she knew. The next day, as I stood beside Victoria while she married David, I felt Mom's presence, not in a supernatural way, but in the choices we'd made, the people we'd become, the love we'd learned to give and receive. When it was time for the toasts, I stood with a glass of champagne and looked at my sister. Really looked at her. At her joy, her peace, her hard-won happiness. To Victoria and David, I said, and to second chances, to hard lessons learned and new beginnings earned, to the people who love us enough to let us fail, and to the strength we find when we finally learn to stand. I raised my glass higher. And to Mom, who knew us better than we knew ourselves and loved us enough to let us go. Everyone drank, and I saw Victoria wipe away tears. Happy tears this time. Grateful tears. Later, as the party wound down and guests began to leave, Victoria pulled me aside. I'm glad you're my sister, she said simply. I'm glad you're mine too. Even after everything? Especially after everything. We hugged, and this time it wasn't awkward or brief. It was real and warm and full of everything we'd been through together. All the pain, all the growth, all the love that had always been there, buried under years of resentment and misunderstanding. When we finally pulled apart, Victoria was smiling through her tears. Same coffee shop next Tuesday?
Same coffee shop, I confirmed. She went back to her new husband, and I watched them dance under the fairy lights we'd hung together. Around me, the park hummed with laughter and music and joy. I touched Mom's wedding ring, now on a chain around my neck, a reminder of sacrifice and strength, of tough love and tougher choices. Thank you, Mom, I whispered to the night sky, for everything, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. The stars winked back at me, and somewhere in the distance, a duck quacked on the pond. Life going on, always forward, always changing. And for the first time in years, I felt completely, utterly at peace. A year after Victoria's wedding, I found myself back at Mom's grave for the first time since the funeral. I'd avoided it, not out of disrespect, but because I hadn't known what to say. How do you talk to someone who orchestrated your entire life from beyond the grave? The cemetery was quiet on this Tuesday morning. I'd taken the day off work, something the old me never would have done. The new me was learning that some things were more important than perfect attendance records. I placed fresh flowers on the headstone, simple daisies, Mom's favorites. Not the elaborate arrangements Victoria used to insist on for every occasion, but something real and unpretentious. Hi, Mom, I said, feeling foolish talking to a piece of granite. I don't really know how to do this. Victoria's probably better at it. She always was better at expressing feelings, even if they were the wrong feelings. A bird chirped nearby, and I smiled. I've been thinking a lot about what you did.
The will, the journals, all of it. I was so angry at first. Angry at you for manipulating us, angry at Victoria for gloating, angry at myself for being the easy child who got overlooked. I paused, tracing Mom's name carved into the stone. But I get it now. I really do. I sat down on the grass, not caring that it was slightly damp from morning dew. Victoria's doing well, really well. She and David just bought a small house, not the mansion she used to dream about, but something they can actually afford on their combined salaries. She's working her way up in her company, and her consulting business is growing. She's proud of herself, Mom. Actually proud of things she's accomplished, not things she's been given. The wind rustled through the trees, and I pulled my jacket tighter. And me? Well, I'm learning to be a little more like Victoria was, ironically. Not the entitled parts, but the parts that ask for what they want, that take up space, that don't always put everyone else first. I laughed softly. Last month, I said no to planning the library's annual fundraiser. Just said no. And the world didn't end. Someone else did it, and they did it fine. It was revolutionary. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a photo. I'm seeing someone. His name is Marcus. He's a high school teacher, and he's patient and kind and thinks my painting is actually good, not just nice hobby good. Victoria likes him. She invited us both to dinner last week, and it was normal. Pleasantly, boringly normal. We talked about his students and her business and whether to get Thai food or Italian for dessert. Setting the phone down, I looked at Mom's dates. Born 1957, died 2023. 66 years. Not enough time, but maybe enough to leave a lasting impact. I read through all the journals again last month, cover to cover, and I found entries I'd missed the first time, like the one where you wrote about being afraid we'd both hate you for what you were planning, or the one where you second-guessed yourself, wondered if you were making the biggest mistake of your life. I pulled out a worn piece of paper from my pocket, a copy I'd made of one particular entry. You wrote, "What if I'm wrong? What if this breaks them instead of fixing them? What if Victoria never learns and just crashes harder? What if I'm not brave, just cruel?" I folded the paper carefully. You weren't cruel, Mom. You were terrified and brave and desperate to fix something you thought you'd broken. And it worked. It actually worked. A couple walked by in the distance, holding hands. Life continuing. Always continuing. Victoria asked me something last week. She asked if I'd ever considered that maybe you didn't make me the responsible one. Maybe I just was that way, and you worked with what you had. It made me think, was I born steady, or did I become steady because you needed me to be? Does it even matter anymore? I stood up, brushing grass from my jeans. I brought you something. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small leather-bound book. It's my journal. I started keeping one after reading yours. Nothing as profound, just daily thoughts and feelings. But I wanted you to have the first one. I filled it up over the past year, and I thought, I don't know, maybe it's silly, but I thought you should have it. A record of the year after you died. The year everything changed. I placed the journal at the base of the headstone, weighing it down with the smooth stone I'd brought from the park where Victoria got married. There's an entry in here about the day Victoria gave me your wedding ring, and one about the day I realized I'd been living in your shadow even after you died, trying to guess what you'd want me to do. And one about the day I decided to stop, to just live my life without constantly wondering if you'd approve. The sun was rising higher now, warming the air. I forgive you, Mom, for all of it. The favoritism I felt, the burden I carried, the test you put us through. I forgive you because I understand now that you were just as lost as we were. Just a person trying her best with impossible choices and imperfect information. You didn't have a manual for how to raise one difficult daughter and one easy daughter. You just did your best. I touched the headstone one more time. Victoria and I are having lunch today, our regular Tuesday thing. We'll probably talk about her latest client, or my latest painting, or Marcus's terrible dad jokes. Normal sister stuff. The kind of relationship we never had when you were alive because we were too busy playing our assigned roles. Her the crisis, me the solution. I picked up my bag, ready to leave, but not quite ready to go. Thank you, I said finally, for loving us enough to let us go, for being brave enough to do something radical instead of something safe, for trusting that we'd figure it out eventually, and for leaving me those journals, even though they were painful to read. The truth was better than the comfortable lies. I walked back to my car, feeling lighter. Not because the grief was gone, it would never be completely gone, but because I'd finally said what I needed to say. To Mom, to myself, to the universe. My phone buzzed. Victoria. Still on for lunch? I have news. I smiled and texted back, absolutely. Can't wait to hear it. I drove out of the cemetery and back into the stream of morning traffic. Back to my life, my choices, my future. The one Mom had tried so hard to give me, even if the gift had been wrapped in pain and confusion. And as I merged onto the highway, I realized something. Mom's greatest gift wasn't the journals or the lesson or the tough love. It was this: the freedom to become whoever I wanted to be, unburdened by guilt or obligation or the weight of being the good daughter. I was just Claire now. Not the responsible one, not the easy one, not the overlooked one. Just Claire. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.